Hi everyone, it's Shannon and welcome to today's video. So I am back with another palette ranking, and this one is for my Sigma Beauty palettes. Now this is not going to be the 9 pans or the little quads that they came out with. These are going to be for their bigger palettes, their larger size palettes, and mostly, I guess it's mostly 14 pans. And then there's two that are a little bit larger. So the Knook and the Saldana are a little bit larger, so I'm including those. So anything like 14 pans and above are included in this one. Anything like less is not. So there are 14 palettes. I have all 14. I'm gearing up to do my big eyeshadow palette declutter. I really want to get my collection down. I kind of started my declutter early in 2024 and I'm just now finishing up in 2025, but my eyeshadow palettes are really out of control. When I started this YouTube channel, I have my original YouTube channel, Shannon Ford, but when I started this one 2 years ago, I kind of felt like, oh, I needed to have everything. And if I had like one thing, I needed to have like a brand, I needed to have everyone and in the entire collection. And I'm really trying to get out of that mindset. I don't need to have everyone in the collection. I don't have the storage space. Plus, I don't have the subscribers, right? I'm just under 7,000 subscribers as I'm recording this. And while I love to do swatch comparisons, I don't get palettes. I don't get a lot of PR. Sometimes I do get like PR from, marketing companies that focus on micro influencers, but even when I get PR, I don't get it in advance, like early in advance. So sometimes I'm lucky, but most of the time I'm not. So I've kind of gotten out of that mindset. And also I think I just as a consumer want to get into a more frugal mindset and a more use what you have and buy what you really want. So I want to start preaching that, and that's what I'm going to be doing with my personal self and then also with my channel. So part of that is I want to rank the palettes that I have so that also it helps me when I come to my eyeshadow palette declutter of what I'm going to keep. And I think what I love the Sigma quality, what I've noticed is a lot of the stuff is very similar, as far as the color stories. And also I have a lot in the 9 pans and the quads. So I'm almost really curious as to far as what am I going to keep within the Sigma Beauty collection, because the formulas it's great. The formula are consistent. There's no problems. Like there's no palette that I said, oh, the formula's not good in this one. No, but the formula's pretty consistent across the board. But a lot of the shades are also you can get, some of the quads, you get the same shades in some of the other palettes. So I'm really curious as to what I'm going to keep, because I really don't know. There's some that I know I'm keeping, but then there's some I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to keep that one. So because you might get that shade in, one of the quads or one of the 9 pans. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with this eyeshadow palette ranking. Okay, so before I get started, I did do swatches in natural sunlight before filming this video, so I will be including those in the beginning once I announce which one is which. Also, there's timestamps below, so if you want to cheat, just go down below. You can if you want to get my opinion on a certain palette, go down below and you can cheat and you can go to that timestamp. For the swatches, they're all in order as far as how they're laid out. So I'll do the top row and the bottom row, with the exception of the ones that have the mini palettes. So Sigma came out with 7 pan palettes, like mini versions of a lot of their most popular palettes. New Mod, Cor-de-Rosa, Ambiance. So they came out with these mini palettes that are the same, but they have 7 shades of the palette. So there's 14 shades in the regular palette, and this is 7 of those shades. So there's 7 shades that are in the larger palette, but you're only going to get half the shade. So what I did with those is when I did the swatches, the first half are the swatches of the shades that are in the mini palette, and then the second half are the shades that are in the larger palette. So you can see what you'll get if you just get the mini palette, and then you can also see what you're not getting if you get the mini palette. So I'm hoping it helped me. I was like, oh, maybe I don't need the whole thing of Cor-de-Rosa. But then when I see it, I'm like, oh, well, then I'm not going to get these shades, and these are the shades I really like, right? I don't know if that's the case. I don't really remember, but just wanted to share that. So once I get to those, honestly, most of those are the most popular palettes, and those are going to be pretty high in the ranking, so those will come later. But I did want to explain that, so when I do the swatches, you'll understand why it's laid out the way it is. And before we get started, I also want to say that there is no problem with any of these formulas. Again, it's just personal preference, personal color story, and which ones I gravitate towards and which ones I really use. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with number 14, the bottom. And this one I think is one of the original ones. And I got this one in a sale because it was one of the older ones. And I picked it up just because it was that mindset of having the whole collection, which I'm again trying to get out of, and that is Untamed. So this is Untamed. I love the palette, the cover. So it's got this velvet, this black. I think it's really, you know, kind of like a sexy. So here it is. And this one is just, it's kind of a little deeper, and it's got a lot of good colors. Like I like these purples, this blue is gorgeous. But when I look at this one, I kind of just struggle. Like it's not one that I look at and like, oh, I love it. It's something that, you know, I gravitate towards. I think there's really pretty colors. You've got like this if you want a green look. So if I took this, you can do a really simple purple look. You could get a lot of looks out of this one. But I think that since it's so many different colors, I tend to like not reach for it. You know, I kind of, if I'm looking for a color, I go for a more colorful palette, and I just don't reach for this one. So I think it's really pretty, and when I've done looks with them, it's really pretty. I've actually done a really pretty green look with these two right here, with this one on the, I think a little as an accent. So I've done a really great look with this one. But again, it's just one that I don't reach for. So this one will probably be in my declutter. So this is my number 14, Untamed. Okay, next up is number 13, and it is from the Disney collection, and it is the Alice in Wonderland. And I only bought this because I'm a fan of Disney, and I'm not even a fan of Alice in Wonderland. I'm just a fan of Disney. So I got it, and I actually like it. It's a really pretty color. It's a really pretty palette. It's just really colorful. And for me, it's a little too colorful because I don't know what to do with it. You get a lot of blues and turquoises. I kind of like, probably like this side over is kind of what I look for. These shades, well, exception of this one right here, I will use, I've used quite a bit. This green one is also really pretty, but to be honest, I really just don't reach for this one. And I like it. I thought about like, will I keep it because it's Disney? I don't know. I'm trying to also get out of that mindset too. You'll see some of the palettes, most of the palettes always had this brush, and you have a two-ended brush, which I like because it is the quality brushes of Sigma. But you'll see with a future palette that they've kind of stopped doing that, and I like it so much more because they take up less space in my drawer, which I like. So, and I'm sure with just the price of, you know, supplies and everything's going up, I think that they probably needed to cut that to keep the price, you know, somewhat reasonable. But I like this palette, but I find that I just don't reach for it because it's just a little too colorful for me. So for me, my Alice in Wonderland is number 13. Next up is my number 12, and this is one I actually got in PR. This was, I think, the first PR that I got from Sigma, which was a big surprise. And when I first did it, I really liked it. I really like this palette, and I do really like it. But there's a lot of shades that I don't use. So it is my Knook, and I love Knook. She's phenomenal, does really great tutorials. So I like this palette. So you'll see in this palette here that it's kind of like a tale of two palettes. So if you look at kind of here, you've got this really warm palette, right? You've got this really warm palette, and those are the shades I use. Like I love warms, so this is the palette I use. This side, not so much. You know, the grays are really pretty, but I also don't use the grays very often. And if I do want a gray look, I'm going to reach in for my Xenon. Then I'm going to use then these. And then these shades, you can tell I've barely touched them. I think I've only used them to do swatches. So here are the swatches. You'll see the first half I did do it as I did break it up so you can kind of see how it's a tale of two palettes. So you've got this right here, you know, the warm side, and then here's the second side with the gray and the purple and blues, which is really pretty. And if you love color, it's a really great palette. I think if you're a makeup artist or you're someone who really loves color, this is a beautiful palette. But for me, it is my number 12. Okay, next up is a number 11, and it is another influencer palette, and it is Diana Saldana. So this one, I don't really watch her, I'll be honest, and honestly had never heard of her when this palette came out. I did purchase this one myself, and I actually really like this one. The reason why I put this one kind of at 11 is it kind of, because it's larger, it kind of is on the bottom of the pile. And the same thing with the Knook, is that it falls at the bottom of the pile, and then I just never reach for it because I have so much. I do really like it, but as I was kind of ranking them and I had everything laid out and I was really being methodical, I was just like, you know, there's nothing here that I can't get in another palette and that I have. And I like everything, but it's very, I think it's hard to say. I think if you have a lot of a collection, then this is really nothing special. However, if you are looking for a palette that you can get a lot of looks with, really pretty, then this one is great. I really loved this one when it first came out, and when I used it constantly. I think it was like in my 2022 palettes. And as I've gotten more, it's just kind of, you know, fallen down the wayside. And you can see like there's shades that I don't use that much. The blue, the purple, this purple here. So there's just, I don't know, it's just something where I just don't use it as often. It's really pretty. It's also more pastel-y. I guess it's not pastels, but it's kind of like light and airy, and that's just not me. So I'm more neutrals, warms, etc. So it's a really pretty palette. I think if you're looking for something that's going to give you a lot of different colors that are, you know, very ethereal, I think this is a beautiful palette. I used it a lot when I first got it, but again, looking at my entire collection, it's one that doesn't really get me excited. It's not something I gravitate towards. So for me, it is my number 11. Okay, next up is my number 10, and it is another influencer one, and it is from Angela Bright. And to be honest, when I saw this color story and it first came out, I wasn't going to purchase it. I did purchase it eventually when there was a sale, because I did kind of, again, that mentality, trying to get everything. And then plus, I am a huge fan of Angela Bright. She does amazing tutorials. So I did want to kind of support her, so support the influencers that I watch. I love this little quad here. I think it's like the perfect little quad. I almost kind of wish that they came out with a quad. But then, you know, it's very, very colorful. So if you look at it, it's very colorful. But you got a lot of pretty colors. Now, they're really good quality. They go on the eye really nicely. I really love this green shade Fave, but when I put it on my eye, I just struggle with it. No, and it's more of user error, not because it doesn't, you know, not because of the quality, just because I'm not really great with darker shadows, but it is gorgeous shade. This purple is also gorgeous as well. So if you like color and you are good with colorful eyeshadow, this is beautiful. But for me, it is my number 10. And then I also wanted to mention I think this was the first one that came out without the brush. And I love it because not only is it smaller, so it's smaller because it doesn't have the brush component here, but it's also thinner. And I love that. I think that these, you know, kind of are bulky, and I don't like the brush. And you know, you end up losing the brush, or the brush doesn't end up being there, and I never really use that brush. So yeah, I really like these. There's only 2 that have this right now, but I really hope they come out with more with these. I hope that they come out, the rest of their palettes are in this format. Okay, moving on to palette number 9, and this is the newest release from Sigma, and I didn't get it in PR, I did purchase it myself, and it is the Little Mermaid. Now again, this is one, I love the Little Mermaid. My niece is a huge fan of the Little Mermaid. She's like 29, but it is a beautiful. Now this palette, while the color story didn't really call for me, it is pretty colorful. However, some of the shades in this palette are phenomenal. And even though it is number 9, because as a palette as a whole, it's one that I'm not going to gravitate towards a lot. However, they have really upped their game with this palette. And this is one I'm definitely not decluttering. This is one that I'm getting different shades and different formulas. There's a couple duochromes. This shade right here is amazing. I love these like 3 purples right here. And as I was like kind of looking at my palettes and doing the swatches, thinking like, you know, one of the palettes I keep thinking about is, am I going to keep the Roxa palette from Natasha Denona? And honestly, as I've gotten through, I kind of see like I don't need to, because I'm not a big purple eyeshadow person. I know some people are. I am not. I like purple eyeshadow every once in a while, but I've got it here and I've got it in a couple other palettes too. And I can definitely get a great purple look from this palette. And this one has beautiful ones, and this one has some really gorgeous shades. Now this like here, right here is a really neutral palette right here. And but these two shades are just phenomenal. I mean, this teal right here is gorgeous too. So this is one that I'm not going to wear a lot. So it's not going to be like one I gravitate towards a lot. And that's the reason why it's falling at number 9. However, it is one that's got so many amazing, unique shades for me and my collection. And especially as far as my Sigma collection, this is one I'm definitely keeping. So I'm definitely not decluttering this one. However, as far as my ranking, it is a little bit up there just because it's one that I'm not going to use as often. However, if you are looking for something like a complementary, to me, this is more of a complimentary palette, unless I'm going for like a really fun, like Halloween or fun, like party look. This is more like a kind of like, I'll add a shade or something like this, more a complimentary palette to a lot of things. However, some of these shades are gorgeous. So I only picked up this. I didn't pick up anything else from the collection. I've heard it's really nice. They did send it out to PR to some people. I wasn't one of them, which is fine. I did finally pick it up when there was a sale, but I do highly recommend it, especially if you're looking for some unique shades. But for me, as a whole, it falls to number 9. And I forgot to mention that if you didn't notice, it has the small packaging, no brush too. So love that, love that. Like, I wish almost they would re-release everything and put it in this format. So good, but then probably not, because then I would probably buy everything else so that it would be smaller, which would not be good. Not smart or frugal. Moving on. Number 8. So number 8 for me is, this one is kind of, I would say I kind of was surprised that it fell to number 8, but there's so many other ones that I like and I use more, and that's the reason why it fell to number 8. I'm not sure if I will declutter this one. This one you can't get anymore. I believe it's completely, I think it's discontinued. It was limited edition, and it is the Cinderella palette. So I purchased this one. I love Cinderella. I grew up with Cinderella, and I absolutely love it. So this one does have the brush. Now these shades are, it's actually a pretty wearable palette, and again, you've got some purple shades. Now these are not as bright, these are a little bit more muted. I love this one right here, but you've got some really pretty shades. This teal is gorgeous. I actually brought this with me when I went to Disney one trip, and you know, wore some colorful shades and was fun. I thought it was a good time to wear some, you know, wear a Cinderella palette and wear some colorful shades to the theme parks, which was fun. So I do really like it. I will probably keep this one, mainly not so much for the color story, but because it is Cinderella and it's not, you can't purchase it again. So if I were to regret it, I wouldn't be able to get it again. So for me, Cinderella falls to a number 8. Okay, and moving on to number 7. So now we're into the top half of the palette. So the bottom half was the ones that we just did, and now we're into the top 7. And number 7 is Enchanted. So Enchanted is kind of what I wish Cinderella was. Now the Cinderella color story, I think, is appropriate for Cinderella for this thing, but I kind of feel like this one kind of could have been Cinderella too, or another princess. This one I think is gorgeous. It's really pretty. Now this is one of the older palettes, and I would say the formula, not that it's not as good, but I do feel like some of the newer formulas are a little bit better, but I do think this one is really good. You've got some muted shades. Now this is the first one that has the mini. So you will see that in the swatches here, the first 7 shades are the ones that are in the mini palette, and then the second set of 7 shades are the ones that are only in this larger palette. And honestly, as I, like, if I were thinking of like whether or not I would declutter the larger one to get the mini, there are shades in the larger palette that aren't in the mini that if I were, you know, I would either declutter it. I don't think I would replace this with the mini because I don't think you're going to get the same effect. But I think it's a gorgeous palette. I think you get, honestly, like if I were to go, and this is the reason why Saldana was at the bottom, because I think you can kind of get similar looks with this palette, you know, and it just be, you know, a little bit less space, less, you know, and you still get the brush. But I don't know. I just really like this one. It's a little bit more muted. You get some good, you know, pastels, but they're more muted, but it's colorful, but in a muted kind of way. How many times did I say muted? Okay, number 6 is definitely a palette that I purchased because influencers influenced me to purchase it. Everybody was raving about it and I finally caved, and this was when I was first kind of starting to get into Sigma. And I did purchase this one myself, and it is the Cor-de-Rosa. So here are the swatches. So here are the first set of swatches with the mini, and these are the mini shades. And then you'll see the second set are the ones in the full palette. So you get like more muted, you're gonna get more the pinks and the, you know, the real rose shades. And then the ones that you're not getting is that hot pink shade and some of the gold lighter shades and some of the brighter shades. So for me, this is the one that I could just do with the mini. If I just got the mini, I would be perfectly happy, because the other 7 shades, well, there's a couple shades that I would use and I would probably use regularly. There's a lot of those that I wouldn't necessarily use, or I wouldn't really miss them if I had the mini size. So I really like this palette. It's a really pretty palette, but there is some, you know, brighter shades, and it's kind of like when I was doing the Pat McGrath, you know, I prefer Divine Rose over Divine Rose 2. Most people, I think most people on YouTube prefer Divine Rose 2. You know, it's a personal preference, but I do think that it is gorgeous. I have used it quite a bit. It's really pretty, but you know, when I kind of go for like a rosy, when I go for like a rosy tone, I end up going for my Pat McGrath because I think Divine Rose rather than this one. So I don't know. I don't know if this is, now this one also, I could get like a purpley type look. I'm not going to use this hot pink really that much, but I could get a purpley type look or combine it with it. I don't know if I'm going to keep this one, to be honest. I think once I get everything out, I'm really going to take a look at my collection and whether or not I'm going to keep this one. But I think it is a beautiful palette, and this is if this is a color story that you're really, drawn to, then I think it's gorgeous, because you do get some warm tones, you've got some oranges, you've got the purple, you got the pink, you got everything here. So this one is one that I think it's worth getting the larger one, but if you are more of a neutral loving person, then you might be fine with the mini. However, the mini at this point I think is sold out and is only available if you buy the set of 5 minis. So something to think about. But I still love it. I think it's gorgeous. So for me, Cor-de-Rosa is my number 6. Okay, so my number 5 is warm neutrals. And this was interesting when I was ranking them, because I haven't really used this one too much, but it's because it's one of the older ones and it's one that's not talked about. However, as I've gotten into it and I was really thinking about it and what I would use, I was like, you know what? I just don't use it because I forget about it. And I have too many, same thing I've talked about. I have too many palettes. I need to start, really kind of condensing my collection. And this is a palette that really gives you so much. So here are the swatches. The first set of swatches are the ones that are in the mini. And you can see this is very neutral, kind of pinky, a little bit of rose gold. And then you have the other 7 shades. So this is one where I would say the bigger palette is definitely worth it. I think because you've got this fool's gold shade, which is stunning, and it's my favorite shade. You can see it's got a dip in it, and then it's got some, you've got some really pretty shades, and you've got some of the deeper shades, that are going to be in the larger palette. So this is one where I think the mini palette is good, and if that's something that you really like those shades and you don't think you're going to use these other shades, then great, but the mini's worth it. However, to me personally, some of the best shades are in the full palette, not the mini. So I would say get the full palette, not the mini, but I think both are great. And for me, this is my number 5. Okay, moving on, we have Ambiance. So Ambiance is my number 4 and I had to look, and Ambiance is it's just a color story that's totally up to me. Like, this is just got my name written all over it. If you saw my Natasha Denona rankings, like I Need a Warm was my number 1. I think Golden was my number 3. This is like if I Need a Warm and Golden had a baby. So do I need this one? Probably not, because I have those two. However, I do really, really like this palette. Now, this is one where I think the mini could be enough if you like that. So if you look at the first 7 shades, you'll see, a good mixture of shades as far as, you're going to get a good, you know, you kind of got like a coppery shade, and you've got 3 or 4 good mattes and 3 good shimmers. And then if you look at the palette as a whole, you can see, well, there is some more dimension. You definitely got some, you know, added shimmers. You're getting some depth there with a darker, you know, matte. However, you're not getting too much of a difference. So I think with this one, again, if I wanted to declutter this one and maybe get the mini, I think I could, you know, I would get the same amount of looks out of it and still be happy and be able to kind of somewhat condense my collection just because it would be smaller. I do really love this. So if you are, you know, if you don't want to spend the Natasha Denona price tag on I Need a Warm or the Golden, I think this is a really good alternative. And, you know, the prices for Sigma are like, I think this is like $49, but that's full price. I do have a promo code. It's just Shannon. So you can use that, Shannon. However, there's always good sales. So I try to post sales, but I try not to overload my community tab with sales. But whenever there's good sales, you know, definitely check them out. And that's what I would say with any of their palettes. The Disney ones, sometimes you really can't use a promo code, but with their normal palettes, especially ones that have been around for a while, I think they're great. You know, definitely get them, wait till they have a sale. Sometimes they have like a 40% off sale, or even a buy one, get one free, which is phenomenal. So I would definitely say, and that you could definitely get, it's definitely worth it because you could save money and not get the I Need a Warm or Golden and get this and really get the same amount of looks. Now, the shimmers are not as special as some of the Natasha Denona, but these are really good quality. So Ambiance is my number 4. Okay, moving on to my number 3, we have New Mod, and this is a newer one. I would say it's not new, but it's newer. It's one of their newer palettes. They haven't come out with too many palettes, and that's one of the reasons I like Sigma is they don't come out with too many collections, and they've actually been coming out with newer products. They came out with a skin tint. They came out with other things, so I love that about Sigma. So here is the palette here. So really pretty, and this one is just you know, it's kind of rosy. It's got a little bit of everything. You've got, it's New Mod, it's mauve. I love mauve tones. Mauve tones are just, to me, I'd rather have a mauve tone than a pink or purple. It's kind of like the perfect medium. So if I were to like choose, I think I will probably keep this one instead of Cor-de-Rosa because I think I can get similar looks, obviously, and then in the tones that will probably be more complementary to my skin tone. I still haven't decided. I'm still working on it, but this is one that I'm kind of like, I don't see myself decluttering New Mod, to be honest. Now looking at the swatches, here are the swatches of what the mini looks like. So you see it's got, you know, it's got that burgundy shade, the dark brown, and then you've got 3 shimmers. So you've got 4 good mattes and 3 really nice shimmers. And then you see here is the full palette of New Mod. And while I think, again, the mini is a good alternative if you wanted to save money and you just wanted to save space as well, because this one is one of the larger palettes with the brush. But there are some shades that I think that you're not going to get. You're not going to get that really pretty gold. There's some shades that and that light, that really nice champagne shimmer. I think that those are what kind of makes the dimension of this palette a little bit special, but I still think the mini is a good alternative. It's not like the other one where I thought like you're not going to get the really good shades like warm neutrals. This one I think that you're going to get, you know, you'll get a similar look, maybe not as many looks or as versatility, which makes sense because you're getting half the amount of shadows, but I think it's a really good option. However, I do think it's worth splurging the money if you like mauve tones like me to get the full size. So this is my number 3 New Mod. Okay, 2 more left, and my number 2 was my number 1 until recently, and that is Beauty and the Beast. I love this palette. Now, it doesn't seem like it's available anymore. You can only get the mini. It looks like this one is sold out and it was limited edition, so I believe it's gone. I'm not sure, but you can still get the mini. But which I always hate when my number 1 is one that you can't get anymore. That like really bothers me. But it is one of the ones with the brushes. These brushes were phenomenal. I did get this one in PR. I got the whole collection, and honestly, the blush set is my favorite. It's like it has like a peach blush, a pink blush, and a highlighter. It's just, I love that little blush set. And this palette is stunning. What I loved about it is it has a good amount of neutrals and then a couple colors. Like you have this side, like this little quad right here. So really pretty colors. And then you've got a lot of neutrals, and this green is just gorgeous, like just gorgeous. And then you have this like navy blue. So let's take a look of what the mini looks like. So here's the mini, and the mini is really mostly the neutral shades. You've got that really nice matte navy blue, and then you've got the, you know, the champagne, the green, which I think is stunning. So you've got some really, you can get some really pretty neutral looks. But when you look at the rest of the palette, you're not going to get that really pretty like rose gold shade, the purple shade, the hot pink shade, which honestly I'm not really going to use that much, but you're really not going to get more of the colorful shades. So, but again, you can't get the big one anymore. So if you really wanted and you liked Beauty and the Beast, then I do recommend, because I do think, like, honestly, to be honest, the shades that are in the 7, the mini, are probably the shades I use the most. Those are going to be the shades that use the most. The green, so those are really, you know, but it's nice to have those in this palette because it's just like a nice little touch, but I do use those the most. I kind of wish that they didn't put the navy blue in the mini and maybe put a pop of color, but I'm sure there was a reason to that. But I do think this one is gorgeous. So this is my number 2, Beauty and the Beast. Okay, so now my number 1 Sigma Beauty palette is going to be the brand new Kohl Neutrals. And this is what I am wearing on my eyes today. And I did try to go with a few shades that were a little bit out of my comfort zone. So this is gorgeous. This is the most recent palette, and it is, or not the most recent, the Little Mermaid is, but this is the most recent normal one. And then this is the last one that came with the brush. I love the brush. I love the, you know, the design of the actual brush, but I kind of do wish it was the smaller format, to be honest, because I do love it. It is great. It is such a great, it's not, it almost looks like it's cool, but it's actually not as cool as you might think. It's definitely, I would think, more neutral, though I am wearing some like kind of the cooler shades today. So basically what I'm wearing is have like a combination of these 2 shades, or actually these 2 shades as the transition, this as the like on the outer corner, and then these 2 on the lid. So I put this, which is Thunder, all over the lid, and then I put Angel Wing in the inside of the, and it's just gorgeous. Like, I just absolutely love it. I do kind of gravitate towards this side usually, but for this video, I did want to really kind of go out of my comfort zone and go with some of the shades that are unique to this palette. So here are the swatches of this palette, and you can see this palette is just so versatile. It's just, you've got the warm shades, you got some pops of color with Laguna and Iris, the little pink and the lavender, and then you've got that shade Thunder, which is a blue, but it's a very subtle blue, and it's a very wearable blue. And Angel Wing is absolutely stunning. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous palette. I think they really outdid themselves. I also love, love, love the cover. This one I actually got pretty late. So there was like an influencer or creator like get together, and Sigma was a sponsor, and they gave all of these out to the creators. So all of them got like PR and did all these videos. So I didn't feel the need to purchase it right when it came out. I didn't get it in PR. So I didn't feel the need to purchase it right when it came out, but everybody raved about it. So when there was a sale, I did wait for there was a sale. When there was a sale, I did finally purchase it, and I have no regrets. Like, it is gorgeous. And honestly, while I love the Glam palette from Natasha Denona, when I want a cool look, I tend to go for this one. This is the palette I'm going for. Like, this is the one that I think I actually would say that I like this more than Glam, because I think you just get a little bit more versatility. This one I think is just, if you are someone who likes neutrals and you like, you know, more subtle muted colors, but you do like a little bit of variety, this one is perfect. Like, I think this one is for me to have a palette that's not like completely warm be my number 1, then it's pretty amazing. So my number 1 is Kohl Neutrals. Okay, so there you have it. That is my ranking for my Sigma Beauty larger palettes. Let me know in the comments what you think. Which one is your favorite? Which ones do you have? Which ones are you looking to purchase? And which ones have you skipped, or maybe you decluttered yourself? I'm always curious to hear. And I think like these rankings are really helping me decide which ones I'm going to keep. And again, you might be surprised when I finally do my declutter. I might be surprised that, you know, like I said, even though the Little Mermaid is kind of at the bottom of the list, it's is one that I'm definitely not decluttering, not because it's a Disney palette, but because it's got some unique shades in there that I definitely want to keep it. But you know, cool neutrals I think is going to be in my collection for a while. So with that, if you like this video, click like, click and subscribe. That way you get a notification every time I post a new video. Bye everyone.